everyone, welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of She Gets It Done. I'm Tony and this is Sonna, and welcome back.
Yes,
Yeah,
welcome back.
Had a nice break.
Great break. We did need it, didn't we? It was summer in New Zealand, maybe not today, but we've had a really good break, so it's been nice.
I enjoyed it. I loved hanging out with my dogs a little bit more than what I usually do.
Same, we went camping and it was just so nice to have like 9 days where it was just my dogs, and yeah, it was just good.
It was lovely, right?
Nice.
Well, we might as well start. And we thought today we'd talk about getting a second dog and whether we should, shouldn't we, should we hold off, and to help owners make an informed decision.
Yep. I think to kick it off is the first one: don't get a dog if your current dog is still a puppy. I think you had someone not too long ago that was like a client, potential client, that had like a 5-month-old dog, and she was struggling with the 5-month-old, and then she was like, oh, I'm gonna adopt another one, and that was like an 8-week-old or something like that. Like, do not do that. Why?
Yeah.
Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah, so she adopted a dog. He was very mellow, very chill, and so they got another one, a little bit younger, and it kind of put too much pressure on the puppy, and the puppy was displaying a lot of unwanted behaviours. It couldn't settle, and so it was constant playing, and it was a lot of havoc. So we recommended that it was probably better that the puppy went back to the rescue, and it got adopted out straight away to a perfect home.
Cool.
And now the dog that they originally had has gone completely back to normal, way happier. And I said to them, you can look in down the track when they're a bit older and you've done training, then you could look at getting another dog if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think it's important to realize that if you get 2 puppies almost at the same time, it's like having twins. Are you sure you want to do that? And I don't want to dive into littermate syndrome at the moment, but that's just, why would you want to potty train 2 dogs at the same time? And both pups don't know what to do, and it's just a headache. And I think it comes a lot from people that are like, oh, but I don't want my dog to be alone. Like, I want them to have a friend, which is great, but they can have a friend later on in life.
Yeah, and I also think it's, well, if we get to it once and we get it all over and done with once, we don't have to do it both. But you're actually making it so much harder on yourself.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you have to do everything twice. But also, puppies take a lot of effort. Like and I think a lot of people, when they go into getting a puppy, especially if they're new owners, they don't realise how much hard work they are. And if they have had a puppy before, but their dog, might have passed away, and now they've gotten 2 more, they've kind of forgotten the hard stage.
Bad bits.
Yeah, the bad bits. So I think a lot of people can end up biting off a bit more than they can chew. Like, sometimes you get lucky and you get 2 very chill puppies, but sometimes it just makes extra work for yourself. And also then you struggle to build a relationship separately with your dogs.
I think that's a really important one, because it seems like, oh, but they keep each other company. Yeah, but you don't want the pup to be so glued to the other dog that you don't mean anything, which I think happens a lot. And loose leash walking, which is one of the main issues almost everyone has problems with, you can't teach that 2 dogs at the same time. No. You have to do the training separately. And that goes for sit and stay and calm, and everything takes double the amount of time. I would never get 2 dogs at the same time, or really close in age to each other.
Yeah, no, exactly. And even just working on, we've talked in the past about socialization, you really need to make sure you're getting that right, like getting them out to different places and everything. And it's really hard to focus on that with one dog. You are so much better to put a lot of work into your first dog and have a really solid dog that can lead by a great example. Not that we say, like, if you have a really awesome first dog that you're automatically they're gonna teach everything, but it's so much easier then to focus on the next puppy and raising them the same way.
Exactly, because if you have a stable dog that you don't have to spend, house-proofing, so because he's still ripping the couch apart if you don't look after them, like if you don't have that, you can actually, well, I don't want to say neglect, But that is kind of what happens, right? When you have an older dog and you get a puppy, the older dog kind of goes to the back seat for a little bit because all your energy goes to the puppy because the older dog knows what is expected. And obviously you give them enough attention. I'm not saying neglect your older dog. Please don't do that. But it's just so much easier. I mean, it's not that hard to imagine if you have a teenager that is able to cook for themselves and clean their room and has a job to make a bit of money on the side, and then you get a newborn. Now, obviously, that's easier than having two newborns at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Another one I think is a good reason to not get a second dog is, and I see this all the time on Facebook groups, is, oh, just get a second dog. They will solve the problem. Whatever that problem may be. It might be destructiveness, it might be separation anxiety. Sometimes I see it with reactivity, but not as often. It's like, oh yeah, if you just get a second dog, it'll sort itself out. I hope not. I hope for you that it,
Yeah. Well, one I saw was the person was out for, I think, 8 or 9 hours a day. And then they said, oh, well, you should get them a mate. And I'm like, because then they could entertain themselves. I'm like, there's a few reasons why that doesn't work. So one reason is I don't recommend, especially at the beginning, maybe later on, is leaving two dogs unattended in a house, because so many things can go wrong. You can get fights and everything. You just if you're not there, you don't know, and then that's a whole issue in itself. The other issue is if your dog does have a problem with separation, you probably end up with two dogs that have separation issues.
Yeah, or destruction. Because, and like...
Oh, it's fun. If one's ripping a book, the other one's going to jump right in.
Exactly.
That's fun.
It's like, especially if you have a destructive dog, the general advice online is like, oh, he must be bored, so get him a friend. What you get is you're going to have two dogs that are going to rip up your house, because this is even more fun when I have someone else to do it with. Yeah, so I think sometimes having a second dog helps another dog. Like, I had one client recently where it was a deaf dog, and the older dog died, and the deaf dog was so depressed. Like, I've never seen a dog this depressed ever. Like, I've got videos of it. It was like a shell of itself. And the only advice I could give them was get a new dog. She isn't coping by herself. And they did. They rescued another dog from the pound, and the deaf dog, she just became a dog again. It was crazy. I've got videos of it, and you see her playing again. Like, she didn't want to walk, she didn't want to eat, she just stood there the whole time, like, shivering, hating life, just grieving. And that's the only time I said, I think you need a second dog.
Yeah, and that actually was something similar with my dog, Holly, who passed away nearly 2 years ago. So she was a very insecure dog. And so I had my retriever, and he was a very solid, confident dog. He was an old man when we got him. And unfortunately, he was no longer around. And then she just reverted back to a lot of anxiety, because she lacked a lot of confidence out and about. In the house, she was fine, and she did get a lot more confident as she got older, especially when I got into dog training and she got to be exposed a lot more to dogs. But she just needed that good, solid friend to help her along the way. And they never like played together or anything, but he was just that little confident
support.
Yeah.
I get that.
But I think the thing with that though is making sure that you get the right dog. So my next dog was my lab that I have now. She's a very solid dog. She's a reject guide dog, so she had a lot of training, and so I made sure that her personality was going to work and was going to fit with my dog. And I made that really clear when I was going to adopt her, and they make sure that you do that they do fit, and it worked out really well. And they got along really well, and then she just was so much more confident. But again, if you're going to get a second dog, you need to make sure it's the right kind of second dog. So if you have a dog that maybe is, like in this situation, maybe a little bit more anxious, maybe you don't want to be getting a dog that has like a lot of training and issues that are going on. Like, you could adopt an older dog that, you know, that
Yeah.
no one wants, that just tots along. Like, you could even consider doing something like that if you want a second dog. Yeah, and giving them another chance, and you know, or something like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The whole, if you have an anxious dog or a dog with separation anxiety and you're really insisting on having a second dog, you better fucking make sure that that dog that you're getting has no anxiety issues. Because otherwise they're gonna be feeding off each other and you have just a mess in the house.
Yeah. And that's the thing, Holly didn't have any separation anxiety or issues like that. So, but if she had that, I definitely wasn't going to be getting another dog.
Yeah.
But it was more her insecurities outside of the house. Yeah. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's pretty. I mean, for us, it's very cut and ready, right? Like for us, it's like, right, your dog is still too young. I usually say to people, your dog should be at least a year before you start considering adding another dog. And I know you're even older, you're like more towards 2 or 3.
Yeah.
I say 1 because I know people aren't going to wait 2 to 3 years. Yeah. So at least wait till they're 1.
Or one of my big things is not so much age, but it's, are you at a point where you're happy with the dog, that the behaviors that you have of your dog? Are there things that you're like, actually, like, they're still doing this, they're still doing that, they're still doing this? Then if you haven't even resolved those issues with your dog, why are you going to bring in another dog that most likely is going to have its own separate things that you have to work on? Yeah,
because that's true. I've got a client like that. She got the second dog, even though both dogs are older, and she's like, oh, but you know, she's now doing this worse. I'm like, yeah, because there's another dog in the house and now they're feeding off each other. You should have fixed the problem before you got the new dog. But, you know, I know people are impulsive, so I generally say wait till 1 or when your dog is ready.
Yeah.
And then if you decide to get a dog for reasons like destroying the house or like anxiety, then I would really, really make sure that the second dog that you're getting isn't gonna copy that behavior.
Yeah.
If you really insist on fixing the problem with a second dog.
Yeah. And that's not always easy to come by either, by the way.
You know, I think a really good point is that maybe, and I don't know how achievable this is for most people, but foster a dog and see if your dog's behavior improves.
Yeah. And you might actually, if you foster a couple of dogs, you might just come across that dog because you've had them for a while that they just slot in perfectly. But if you're fostering and it's not working, you can always, sounds terrible, you can always give them back and they can find another foster home. Exactly. But you could say, well, actually, I'm still keen to foster, but it's going to be more these and it could be more these personalities, and then you might just find your dream dog and then your foster fail. Yeah, and that's I think that's a really good piece of advice. Like, not to like I never really thought about that. I probably have to, like, I've never advised that to someone in a session that was contemplating getting another dog. I would always say, like, don't do it. But maybe now I will say to people, how about you foster and you see what it does to your dog's behavior. And also then you can decide whether you want the extra work, because it might be a lot harder than you actually think it is, but it will just give you a little sneak peek into having another dog without the financial commitment of that too. Yeah, and the emotional one, like you do know that if you get a foster that there is, well, you're supposed to move the dog on. I mean, you can obviously keep it if you want to, but usually we foster and we move the dog on. And I think if you're going to adopt, you really need to make sure that you're not just doing it because you love the dog, but they are a good fit. So if you do struggle to do that kind of thing, like let a dog go, maybe consider it might not be the right choice for you, but it could be a good option to look into. Yeah. Cool. I think that's that for this topic. We don't need to go on too long about it. So. No. We'd love to know if you have a second dog and how you came to that decision. Did you get it and it went fine? Or did you experience that it was really hard having two young dogs at the same time? Let us know in the comments. We would love to hear how you go. Oh, and like and subscribe.
All right, see you next time.
See ya.